Stephen, what about the waste? Conservatives, right-wingers, Christians, libertarians, whatever other camp the pro-nuclear people are put in, are not unconcerned about the environment. And we are aware that it's effectively zero emissions and all of the things that we hope to achieve with intermittent renewable technology. But then again, there's this thought or rhetoric that's been put in our head over decades that nuclear waste is a problem. And I don't know the answer to this. I'm not setting you up for something. I know what you're going to say. I believe I've heard something about even spent nuclear fuel can be a fuel source. I don't know if that's true or not, but what about the waste?
Yeah, what about the waste is sort of question number 3. You know, if there's cost, there's time, and then what about the waste? This is a sort of almost a fixation of the anti-nuclear movement. So the first thing I want to say is that I had the same concern myself, and I have come to realise, thanks to people patiently explaining things to me, that I'd believed 3 big lies about nuclear so-called waste. I'm going to call it so-called waste because it's only waste if you waste it, and it can be put to good use, as you've alluded to, Dave. So the 3 big lies about used fuel from reactors, maybe we should take one a little step back and say that when people talk about nuclear waste, there are 3 broad categories: low-level waste, intermediate level waste, and high level waste. Low level waste, you know, gloves, dust jackets, mops, things like that. I think the whole quantum of that every year in Australia from the reactor at Lucas Heights is, I think, 2 shipping containers worth. We know how to handle that safely. It's put in drums and it's stored, and it presents no threat to anybody. There's intermediate level waste, which is more radioactive, other things that have come into contact with radiation, and that we can also handle. We've got there's a facility that's being developed to store that on a long-term basis. But the main thing people are talking about is what's called high-level waste, which is basically the fuel that's been in a reactor. It's become very hot and highly radioactive. So the 3 big lies about that are: it's a huge problem, lie number 1. There is no solution, lie number 2. And dealing with it is going to be extraordinarily expensive. That's lie number 3. The reality is it's a very tiny problem. We have multiple options and ways of dealing with it, and in the scheme of things, it's actually not that expensive. And so, as you've touched on, one of the options we have for dealing with that material is to send it to a reprocessing plant. There's already reprocessing plants in the world. For example, there's one in France. You reprocess that material. You can recover, there's an enormous amount of energy that's still in there.
Wow.
You separate out the nasty stuff, which is then an even small, you take a very, very small problem and make it an even tinier problem. We know how to manage those highly radioactive materials.
Is that profitable or a net cost?
At the moment, it's cheaper to take virgin uranium from a mine and transform it into fuel than it is to take fuel from the reprocessing facility. So in future, if the cost of uranium increases, then it may become cheaper to use the reprocessed fuel. But the way we should think of that material is that is an energy store for the future, and we should look after it in a sensible way that enables us to use it in the future when future generations need it.